They were once the havens of joy, places where the shriek of roller coasters cut through summer skies, where children's laughter tangled with the melodies of carousels, and where the scent of popcorn and cotton candy drifted on warm evening breezes. Amusement parks, the magical kingdoms of our youth. From the towering Ferris wheels to the whirling teacups and shadowed funhouses, these parks offered a world apart from the worries of daily life. They were playgrounds for the masses, places where joy reigned supreme and every visit promised a new memory. But what happens when the laughter stops? When the lights go dark and the gates are bolted shut? When the rides freeze mid-spin and the vibrant murals fade beneath layers of dust and decay? Across the globe, countless amusement parks now stand forgotten. Nature reclaims what humanity abandoned. Rust creeps along twisted tracks. Weeds burst through cracked pavement. And the air hangs heavy with silence. A silence that some say is not entirely empty. Because while the crowds have long since departed, echoes of the past still linger. Ghostly whispers on the wind. Faint strains of long-silenced music, drifting through overgrown fields. And, in the dead of night, the unmistakable sound of a distant scream, not one of thrill but of terror. These are the haunted histories of abandoned amusement parks, where the spirits of joy and tragedy remain eternally entwined. Tonight, we'll step beyond the rusted gates, into places where time stands still, where history decays before our very eyes, and where the forgotten stories of these once vibrant playgrounds for the living now belong to the dead. Unveiling the shadows, the history of abandoned parks. The story of amusement parks is one of dreams. Born in the twilight of the 19th century, these sprawling playgrounds became monuments to imagination. From humble traveling carnivals to grand, permanent parks teeming with rides, games, and spectacles. They were the heartbeats of communities. Places where generations gathered to taste joy, if only for a fleeting day. The golden age of amusement parks arrived in the early 20th century. Coney Island's Luna Park, California's Pacific Ocean Park, England's Dreamland, places where architectural marvels and death-defying rides drew in crowds by the thousands. For decades, these parks stood as symbols of innocence, escape, and the intoxicating thrill of risk. They promised wonder and delivered, but time is cruel. Fashions change. Economies falter, and what was once cherished can so easily be cast aside. By the latter half of the 20th century, the tides began to turn. Smaller parks struggled to compete with the towering titans of modern theme parks, whose sprawling budgets and relentless marketing campaigns rewrote the rules of entertainment. Others fell victim to darker forces: fires, accidents, economic collapse, and, in some cases, tragedy too gruesome to forget. Slowly, one by one, the parks closed their gates. Abandoned to the elements, the laughter was silenced, the rides left to rust. But these places, as we'll soon see, did not fade quietly into history. Because where joy once flourished, sorrow took root. And the empty midways and deserted funhouses soon gave rise to tales of ghosts, curses, and the restless spirits of those who refused to be forgotten. The walls of these abandoned amusement parks do more than crumble. They remember. For decades, stories have clung to these places like mist on a cold morning. Tales of vanished visitors, phantom children seen darting between rusted rides, and figures, half glimpsed in the periphery, lingering just beyond the reach of flickering flashlight beams. Urban legends took root the moment these parks fell silent. Some born from tragedy, others whispered by those drawn to the decayed remnants of forgotten joy. At Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in West Virginia, the land's bloody history predates the park itself. In the late 1700s, it was the site of a brutal massacre. Later, after the park's creation in the 1920s, 6 children reportedly died in mysterious accidents. To this day, ghost hunters claim to hear disembodied laughter echoing through the empty fairgrounds. A swing still moves on windless nights, and those who trespass after dark speak of cold, invisible hands brushing against their skin. At Japan's Nara Dreamland, once billed as the country's answer to Disneyland, stories emerged after its closure in 2006. Visitors tell of a lone figure, cloaked in black, patrolling the decayed grounds. Some claim to have caught fleeting images in photographs, pale faces peering from the windows of crumbling buildings. And then there's Pripyat Amusement Park in Ukraine, the infamous fairground that was scheduled to open on May 1, 1986, but never did. The Chernobyl disaster struck days before, leaving the park frozen in eerie half-completion. Today, the rusted Ferris wheel stands as a chilling monument to lives forever changed. Visitors to the exclusion zone report feelings of dread, and some swear the air hums with sorrow. Ghost sightings, mysterious voices, unexplainable cold spots. Even if one does not believe in spirits, these decaying places seem to invite the uncanny, as though the remnants of joy and grief have fused into something unnatural. And so, these stories persist, growing with each year, passed from one thrill-seeker to the next. Fables of haunted rides and restless souls. Because the dead do not always rest quietly, especially where laughter once reigned. While the supernatural stories draw curious visitors and ghost hunters, the true legacy of abandoned amusement parks runs even deeper. These forgotten places leave more than legends in their wake. They alter the very fabric of the communities they once entertained. Once thriving businesses, bustling with life and laughter, now stand as decaying monuments to neglect. Silent, rotting structures that cast long shadows on the towns they leave behind. In places like Chippewa Lake Park in Ohio or Joyland in Kansas, the park's closures rippled through local economies. Jobs were lost, tourism dried up, and neighborhoods that once pulsed with the rhythm of the carnival fell into eerie stillness. Nature, ever patient, begins its reclamation the moment humanity withdraws. Weeds burst through cracked pavement. Tree roots twist around rusting ride supports. Vines crawl over faded signage. A slow, relentless takeover. These environments become ecological oddities. Accidental nature preserves amid twisted steel and splintering wood. Deer wander through funhouses. Birds nest atop the remains of Ferris wheels. And insects swarm forgotten snack stands. Yet these ruins aren't entirely abandoned. Urban explorers, thrill seekers, and paranormal investigators regularly trespass these places, drawn by both danger and fascination. The risks are real: collapsed structures, exposed metal, contaminated water, and the ever-present possibility of injury or worse. But even so, people return, as though compelled by something deeper than curiosity, a primal urge to confront the past, to stare into the face of forgotten joy and measure its decay. In some cases, efforts are made to preserve these relics. Parks like Spree Park in Germany, closed since 2002, occasionally host guided tours. Others are left to rot, their fates undecided, because preservation is costly. And for many, these ghostly playgrounds serve better as cautionary tales than cherished landmarks. Yet whether revitalized or left to crumble, these abandoned amusement parks remain potent symbols of fleeting happiness, of impermanence, and of the haunting price of forgotten dreams. There's a peculiar ache in places like these, a longing trapped in the rusted rails and rotting wood, memories that refuse to fade, the sound of laughter, the shriek of a roller coaster, the scent of popcorn and cotton candy. All ghosts now, and perhaps that's why we can't look away. Abandoned amusement parks captivate us because they are more than just ruins. They are reminders of impermanence, of how quickly joy can sour, and how places built to cradle happiness can so easily become shrines to sorrow. Each rusted Ferris will hold stories. Each decaying midway remembers footsteps, and every boarded-up funhouse mirror once reflected wide-eyed wonder. Now only dust and time. In recent years, fascination with these forgotten parks has surged. Photographers document the slow decay. Filmmakers chase their ghosts. Urban explorers risk injury and arrest for a glimpse of those lost worlds. And with every photograph, every whispered tale of phantom children and lingering spirits, the legends grow. There's beauty in decay, a certain poetry in ruin, and perhaps a lesson, too, because these parks, now overgrown and silent, remind us of the fragility of joy. of how easily it can slip through our fingers, and how the echoes of our past, however joyful, can sometimes turn cold. But even amid the rust and rubble, something endures, a strange, eerie allure that draws us in, not just to see what's been left behind, but to confront what we fear might happen to the places we cherish. So, the next time you pass a shuttered fairground or glimpse a broken carousel through the trees, stop, listen. You might just hear the distant strains of a calliope, or the faintest sound of forgotten laughter on the wind, because some places never truly die. They simply wait,